Now then, how you doing? I hope you're well. Are you a fiddler? I know I can be. Painting is an immersive process, and the potential to fiddle and overwork a painting never seems very far away. The dividing line between it being just right and overworked, as I'm sure many of you will agree, is painfully thin. Economy of the brush is something that I've spent the better part of 40 years trying to achieve, and I'm still chasing it. Well, I set out to paint Easedale Tarn in the Lake District with as little fuss as possible. Here's how I got on. The Lake District is awash with water. Tarns nestle within the gentle rolling slopes of the lower fells and feed the many streams that wheedle their way throughout the landscape, all helping to keep it green. Easedale is one of the more accessible of those tarns, easily reached from Grasmere via a well-maintained and well-used footpath. This is one of my favourite tarns, which I've sketched and painted many times before. At first glance, it's easy to see it as a simple subject, nothing too taxing. It's just hilly slopes and a ton of water in the foreground, surely. The longer we look at a subject, though, the more we see, and consequently the more details we might be tempted to try and squeeze into a painting or drawing. At which point we risk straying into dangerous territory where the subject becomes overly complex and busy. Once I'm happy with the drawing, I'm ready to start throwing some paint at it. Well, before I do that, it's worth considering how the scene might best be simplified. The plan is to explore ways in which to illustrate the concept of economy. Well, one way that I like to do this is to take all the elements within the scene and apply a loose underwash that effectively combines them all into a single shape. So we're talking about the whole of the background hillside and the foreground rocks, basically everything except the sky and the water. And I'm going to use 4 colours for this, starting with cadmium yellow, followed very quickly by cadmium red. And I say very quickly because I'm applying paint to dry paper. This is not a wet in wet wash, but I do want the colours to fuse together as I apply them, which means I need to work at a pace so that they don't dry off prematurely. Why encourage something so potentially chaotic and unpredictable when surely a simple flat wash would be easier to control and maintain consistency? To which my answer would have to be simply visual interest. A flat wash may be more predictable, but by its very nature it would be flat and a little bit boring. By applying a multicoloured wash in this way, I have what I believe to be a more visually interesting outcome. A wash that suggests more than it actually shows. A simplified way of divvying up the scene. So my initial wash has established the background hills and the foreground rocks all in one fell swoop. Clearly the next logical step is to start breaking things down or building them up depending upon your viewpoint. And for this I mixed together French ultramarine, burnt umber and a small amount of alizarin crimson. It's a light, relatively weak mix. Maintaining control and keeping things simple also translates into not getting ahead of yourself or going too dark too quickly. Well, the important thing here is to approach the subject in what might be described as broad strokes. If I study the photograph close enough and for long enough, I will discover many details, large and small. In fact, the closer I study it, the more I see, and so the temptation to put all those details in becomes greater. Broad strokes means simplifying the hillside by breaking it down into 2 tones and colours. No more. One of the secrets to getting this bit right is to use as large a brush as possible for as long as possible. Smaller brushes encourage us to fiddle. That's not what we want right now. Broad strokes from a large brush is the key. At this point, the scene is explaining itself reasonably well, with only a minimum amount of washes and brush marks. There could even be a good argument for leaving it and signing it off as it is. It feels underworked, of course, but there is a lot of merit to that. Erring on the side of understatement is generally considered to be a good idea. An understated painting, by its very nature, tends to foster curiosity in the mind of the viewer. Deliberately leaving elements underworked encourages the viewer to generate their own personal interpretation. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please do hit the like button. You should know that this has been just a small extract from a much longer tutorial. And if you're interested in viewing the full-length, uncut, non-time-lapsed version, then you might like to consider becoming a studio member of my YouTube channel, which is absolutely bursting with exclusive premium content, all for you to devour and enjoy. To subscribe, just hit that join button. There are other sign-up options also available, such as my online tuition service. If you're interested, you'll find full details in the video description below. And that's that. Until next time, do take care.